It's the Mike Tech Show, show number 836. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Smith. Thank you very much for downloading and subscribing to the show. Please visit the main website at miketechshow.com. You can email me questions and suggestions for show topics at miketechshow@gmail.com. You can visit the YouTube page where all the videos, including this one, will be posted up, and that's youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS. This show is brought to you by Instant House Call. If you are an IT professional or an MSP, this is what you need for your remote access solution because it works on demand for unattended access through firewalls. So it just flat out works. You can try it free by clicking on the link on my website at miketechshow.com or go directly to instanthousecall.com. There you can download the 15-day trial. Please use the promo code MikeTechShow. This show is also brought to you by MagnusBox. This is the best online backup service that you can resell. You can easily become a partner and test it out and demo it. So you can kick the tires and try it out, and you're going to get all the same features that a paid partner has. MagnusBox supports all operating systems. They support Outlook 365 and OneDrive and SharePoint. You can all Office 365. They're HIPAA compliant. It's everything you need in an online backup solution that you can offer your clients. Go to magnusbox.com. Don't forget to tell them that you heard it here on the Mike Tech Show because you'll get free white labeling, and your first 3 months, the platform fee is 50% off. So just say, hey, I heard it at the Mike Tech Show. And go to magnusbox.com. Check them out. Great online backup solution. Interesting recording this on a Sunday. I never record on Sunday. Usually when I can't record on a Thursday night, I always do it on a Saturday. But this week was unique. Thursday, I was celebrating our 43rd wedding anniversary. My wife and I cooked dinner for Thursday night. And I didn't want to have the commitment of the show. And then Friday morning was the scheduled email migration for a client, which is most of the material for today as we talk about that. The ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, and there were some real ugly. So I want to talk about that, and then I got a terrible Microsoft annoyance where they changed something in Outlook that just, it's okay to make changes, but you got to have a way to revert back to the way everybody's using it. So I'll pontificate on that later. Let's talk about the email migration, which for 10 users should be a piece of cake. We're moving from SureWeb Exchange hosted to Microsoft hosted Microsoft 365. This should be a piece of cake. And it normally is when you have a DNS provider where the domain's purchased, where you can actually, make changes in the DNS and it works within, worst case, a half hour. Now, the first company to be thrown under the bus tires, and I'm going to back up and run over them again and again today, is Earthlink. Now, a lot of you are thinking, oh my, Earthlink? They're still around? Yes. My client, through another organization, purchased their domain name 25 years ago. It's kind of hard thinking when you say that. You're like, Yeah. Yeah, 25 years ago. That makes sense. So they've had no issues. They have the domain and they have their website there. Their email is Exchange hosted and with SureWeb. And when we set up everything on the Microsoft side, one of the first things you have to do prior to the migration date and the migration time, you have to verify the domain. So one of the things was just getting access to the control panel of Earthlink, and I did this weeks ago, and there wasn't a big issue. I had to enter the text record. I finally got access because they hadn't accessed that in so long. They had to get the password reset and everything. So the owner of the company got me in. I connected. I made that text record change. And then it took about a half hour before Microsoft could verify that we owned the domain. Okay, went through. We owned the domain. So that wasn't too bad. Wasn't happy that it was on Earthlink, but hey, it worked. So if it's only going to be a half hour or so, I can live with that. So now I'm planning everything with, and I never give names from a company, but I'm going to, and this is a positive thing, the migration tech at SureWeb, his name is Hunter, and he was spectacular. He was phenomenal in helping me and even stayed with me for the few hours where the DNS propagation wasn't happening. So let's start with the prep work, where I had to make sure the alias was set up under all the Microsoft accounts. It was all done. All the right purchasing was done. We're going to talk about in detail later, I can't forget, encryption with Microsoft and something I learned. I've also learned of a cool website that is going to take place, and I'm going to demonstrate here today, which Hunter shared with me. But we had a pre-meeting like a couple weeks before where he gets everything set up, and behind the scenes they do a test transfer, make sure the connectors are working, making sure that the mail is converted for everything up to like 30 days old. All that was working great. Great communications from SureWeb letting me know. We set up a Microsoft Teams call at 10 a.m. Friday for the cutover. My clients are ready. Now, what's interesting, 4 of the 10 clients are on vacation or not returning until Monday or Tuesday of this week. And then we have another one that's out further another week. So that made it interesting. And I learned something going from SureWeb to Microsoft, that if you have an out-of-office message, guess what? That does transfer. And the out-of-office message was activated on the Microsoft side. So one of the things I had to do was make sure I had the right password for each Microsoft account and make sure that they were the main email was the primary, not the .onmicrosoft.com. So made sure they were all the primaries on Friday morning. And then I made the DNS changes with Hunter and me communicating. Made the changes, submitted them, and we kept talking and, testing. And I'm going to show and talk about a website that I always mention, and that's MX Toolbox. And what we're going to do is let me display this, and I'm going to, let me test. Hold on. I don't want the history to So let me go mhsconsulting.net. So I'm going to pick on my own domain. And I'm going to hit MX Records. And that's what's coming up right now, which is the mhsconsulting.net. And why is that? It's not coming up. Let's pause. Let's turn that off. The display capture. Why is MHS Consulting? Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. I did. I spelled it wrong. I spelled my own domain wrong. Okay. Helps if I spell my own domain correctly. So in the listing here on the screen, you're going to see my MX records, which is SureWebCloud.com, because my email for MHS Consulting is on SureWeb. Well, this kept showing up SureWeb and not Microsoft, because I made the change from Microsoft and it wasn't there. So I made 3 entries for the DNS, for the migration. I got to change the MX record. I got to change the auto discover, and they do it by CNAME because they don't have an IP address. So I made the auto discover CNAME and then the text record for the SPF record. Now I made those changes and I expected half hour, okay, maybe an hour at worst. Well, we kept checking and it didn't change. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to type my domain and then mhsconsulting.net, and this is in dnschecker.org. This is incredible. You can search any record. So we're going to search the MX record and show its propagation. So you can literally see the propagation of the DNS record from around the world. Now, what was interesting for my client, when I typed this, I could see the areas, even Friday night, I could see the migration hadn't even happened completely in the United States. DNSchecker.org, Hunter gave me this, the tech from SureWeb, and we kept checking this. We kept checking MX Toolbox and going back and forth, and no changes. So now it's an hour. We're 11 o'clock. There's no changes. I need to call tech support of Earthlink. I get the runaround because I have to prove that I am this client. And I wasn't armed with enough info. So now I have Hunter connected via Microsoft Teams on speaker. I have Earthlink on my VoIP phone, tech support, and on the cell phone, I have the owner of the company. So she could provide me with whatever info I needed. And she gave me the wrong last 4 digits of the credit card. So finally, after 2 very painful hours, but this is not what I am throwing Earthlink under the bus for, because they did their job in making sure they're not going to help me unless I prove that we are the owners of that domain. She did not have access to the billing. She was working with the office manager. They finally got access to the billing. They finally seen, oh, it was this credit card. It was a different one. And they had the PDFs for the billing for the last couple bills. So if you're able to give the amount of the bill, give the last 4 digits of the credit card, and we were able to prove that they're allowed to talk to us. That was 2 hours. And you know what? Hunter hung in there for that. And then finally, I am now 3 hours in as I try to say, look, I need the DNS propagation to be escalated. What can I do? Something I noticed that the TTL setting, time to live, is the settings that you want this entry to live and then propagate. I seen that the last settings were 24 hours, and we can't do that. It has to be a half hour. And I noticed when you're editing the DNS in Earthlink, they do not give you the option for the edit the TTL. And that is one thing I love about GoDaddy. As much as you can complain about GoDaddy, GoDaddy's horrible for email. You can complain about their web hosting, although I do have websites and have not had, knock wood, issues in the past year. For all the problems of GoDaddy, one thing I love is managing the DNS of the domain name. And it's why I always have clients, let's get the domain in GoDaddy, because then we have full control. We can make the entries and control the propagation. I can set them to a half hour and propagate. No problem. I've never had an issue with a migration where I'm dealing with Network Solutions or GoDaddy as where the domain is hosted. So if I ever run into a situation like this again, we're going to delay the project in order to get the domain name properly transferred, whether it to be GoDaddy or Network Solutions. I'm going to recommend GoDaddy. I like working with that. It makes it very, very easy. Plus, one of the things, if you're working with like Microsoft, they can make the DNS changes for you by just giving the authentication to GoDaddy, the GoDaddy credentials, and then Microsoft can make all the changes for you. I like to make the changes myself. But now we are in the middle of mail not going to Microsoft. It's still going to SureWeb. Now, the users are still getting their mail the normal way. It's like the migration hasn't happened yet. Because now we're just wondering, when will the DNS happen? Finally get to this tier 3. I'm pleading to please do something to change that. He can't do it, but maybe he can escalate to someone to change the TTL. So this way we have a fighting chance of today, because they kept telling me, 48 to 72 hours. No, that's unacceptable. Yes, I understand. For DNS replication around the world, you have to give it 48 hours. And I get that. But on email and an immediate, you can do this within minutes, not hours. It's just that you got to make sure that your domain name is registered at the proper registrar. And that's why I like using GoDaddy. So if I had to do this again a couple weeks ago, I would have transferred the domain, and then this wouldn't have been an issue. So now we don't know when it's going to happen, but I got tech support finally pushing, and they're going to call me when they see that it happened. I'm like, this is crazy. So every half hour, I kept checking. I kept refreshing MX Toolbox. When am I going to finally see Microsoft as the MX record? And finally, at right after 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, I see the change happened. I then, and by the way, I let Hunter go after those first, he hung in there 2 hours. Now, he was doing other work and just kind of stayed connected with me. Every now and then we would check in with each other, but he had to do some steps to finalize the migration on his end once it happened. So once it happened, I emailed him. He took care of the final steps on his end, which was to kick off some final migrating of mail, which is happening this weekend. So what they do is they run a script again to move emails that might have come in after the migration, that because the DNS didn't replicate to XYZ email provider. So they run that a few times over the weekend so that by tomorrow morning, by Monday morning, we should be pretty good. Nobody will have lost a message. Now, first thing I was checking was the out-of-office messages, and it was great to see that all the out-of-office messages did transfer. I reset everybody's Microsoft password to make sure I knew exactly the password that they wanted to use, that I could get in. This brings up another very, very, very important tip, and it's private browsing. And I want you to, like in Firefox, if you click the little, the straight lines for the settings, if you click that and pick new private window, or just Control-Shift-P, you're in a private window. Why would you want to do that? Well, when you do that, there's no cookies, or there's no cache or anything related. So I could be in multiple Microsoft accounts at the same time. So I could remain in the admin panel for my client's domain for the Microsoft 365 admin, but yet test going to office.com and logging in as that user in a private window. Private windows are great for something like this on a mail migration. So we already have 3 links for the show notes today. The Microsoft, the MX Toolbox, DNSchecker.org, and then I have this link describing for how to do a private window in Firefox. And same things exist for Chrome and all your browsers. But I just want to make sure when you're doing a lot of admin work and you got to switch between multiple users, and you can't do it if you're in your main browser window because it won't let you. You have to log out to log in is another one. Maybe you got to be in, 4 Gmail accounts at the same time. This is how you do it. So I wanted to make sure I brought that into play to talk about. So now we start checking and migrating by working with the user to just rebuild their Outlook profile. Now has to go to Outlook. Not Outlook. Well, their Outlook profile now has to go to Microsoft, not SureWeb. So did that, and then made sure that they were able to log in on their phone if they needed to get email on the phone. So my son and I start knocking off the 6 users, so where we only got 4 users left for working with them. And they're not going to lose any mail. Everything's going to be there for the new. I already tested it by logging in as them. So we just have to now physically connect on the phone, remote in, and now activate Microsoft under their main email, then create the new profile, and we're done. Well, no, we're not. They used encryption. So here's a tip. If you need encrypted email, then you need to only pick one. And let's say everybody doesn't need E3 for Microsoft. They could just have the Microsoft Business Standard, let's say. You take the main user and you make sure they have an E3 license, because it's a lot more. You're looking at $12.50 per license versus $39. If you have one user, you are allowed to have encryption for everybody. They only have to use the mail flow encryption rule where you set, I use the word encrypt within brackets. So any email that any user sends with the word encrypt on the subject line, it will encrypt that message going out. They could even do that on a mobile phone and it would still work. So now we have to get that activated. Now this gets really deep into the weeds. That is an RMS template that has to be activated. Hunter, thank you so much. He emailed me the PowerShell script that's needed to activate, and you got to feel comfortable with this, or you work with whoever's activating the email for you or wherever you purchased your Microsoft licensing from. If you're doing it yourself, then there is a script where you can run, and then the prompt will come up to log in as the admin for that account, and it will apply. You run PowerShell as an admin, and there's a script, and now the RMS template is available for you to add to a mail flow rule. Those of you that understand this, understand what I'm talking about. And then you can now activate that template and you can have encryption. So I was able to, that was like the last step of the migration to make sure that my user can now send encrypted email. Another important link, and I am going to be using this link for another mail migration, and I'm going to be actually doing the testing next week. It's Migration Whiz, and it's by BitTitan, and this, I've already started setting up my client info on this for mailbox migrations. Oh my, is this the tool to use? And I can't remember the listeners that have recommended this. This is important because I'm going to be going from Gmail to Microsoft. And it gets complicated. But having a tool like this that is done from the cloud, they charge you $15 a user, and then you can charge whatever you want or have a flat fee for your migration. But to move everything that you need to do, calendars, maybe there's OneDrive files, but if you want everything completely migrated, you're looking at $15 a user. And you can first do the test migration, and I'm clicking on pricing here. For just a straight mailbox migration, you're looking at $12. A user migration bundle for the 15 I'm showing here, it's a single license for mailbox documents. Then you got OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, and archives, including automatic Outlook configuration via Deployment Pro. I'm going to really test this out and report back after this is all done. That is something that is very important, that my next email migration, and may that be the last one for the summer, because I've had several this summer, so keeping me on my toes. And just luckily there's been no real disaster. I mean, my big thing is Earthlink doesn't propagate like you should, and I have a big problem with that. All right, on to why would Microsoft change the location of mail, calendar, and people and other modules and put them on the left-hand top side of Outlook as opposed to the bottom? Now, I will say this. That's how it's listed online. If you go to Outlook Web Access for your mail, well, I want them at the bottom left. That's where I'm used to clicking. This is driving me crazy. This changed last week, and the first thing I did was researched, how can you switch it back? Please let me switch it back. Some clients called us. They hate it. They want it to go back. You can't. my complaint to Microsoft. Why make such a major change and not give you the option, even if it's a registry entry, something? Can't we put it back? What if we like it the old way? What if we don't want this? Just to be able, flip it back to the original settings. Let's do that. My clients and I'm in the list, are tired of Microsoft making these changes to us in Office and just blowing them down, and with no consideration whether we like it or not. Shame on Microsoft for not giving us the option to just be able to revert back. They let us customize so many other things. Why not customize that location? Why not? Why not give it to us? Maybe if they have enough pressure, they're going to give it to us in an update. I don't know. But right now, it's a big annoyance for me. It's an annoyance for some of my clients, and not happy. And I needed to vent that today for this. So that is it for today's show. I knew the migration would take a lot, but a lot has really come out of that I think is important for anybody involved in the migration. And I'm going to summarize right now. Make sure that you have full control of your DNS and that you can edit the DNS, and you're happy with the domain registrar that you're with, that make a change and then test the change that doesn't impact anything, just to see that you have full control of the propagation and the timing of that. So that's very, very important. Do that. Then have MX Toolbox, DNSchecker.org in your bag for your browser. While you're testing with the multiple accounts, make sure to use the private browsing within your browser. There you go. Hopefully, if anybody who's been through this already, they're shaking their heads and they agree and they understand this, Mike, you are dead on everything you're talking about. If there are any other things that could make life easier, then I would love you to share that with me, so we can make sure we can do mail migrations and make it as less painful as possible. So that is it for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. It was rare doing a Sunday afternoon, and please join me this Thursday night. Hopefully same time, same channel. Normally, I start recording 7:30 at night live on Twitch. And of course, you can always find the show on YouTube under Michael Smith MTS, or subscribe to the show on any of your favorite podcatchers for downloading the podcast, or just go right to MikeTechShow.com. You can listen to it live right there by just clicking the play button. And that is it. Bye-bye, everybody.